also known as Module A, assessment of teaching and learning, also known as Module B, and then lastly, the inquiry into teaching and learning, which is the full action research cycle. The first cycle is the first module, Module A, and the formative assessment. Together with your support provider's assistance, you will begin collecting data about your students, including CELT scores, IEP information, identifying all your students' strengths, and identifying areas of need as well. You also learn more about your school and district, such as the school-wide discipline policy, AYP scores, conference schedule, and so forth. Lastly, you will collect information regarding resources available to you and your students throughout the community. At the end of this data collection, you and your support provider will discuss the data collected and begin having a conversation about how all this information will inform instruction. Welcome to the presentation Program Standards. Classroom. Together you will reflect on the observation and any insights you have gained. This will be followed by a self-assessment where you look at your teaching practice in relation to the California standards for the teaching profession and the induction program standards, which focus on pedagogy and universal access. The last module, Module C, is the inquiry. Now that all the data has been collected, it's time to look at an area in which you would like to improve your practice. This is the full action research cycle that the two initial data collection cycles led you to. When you bring together what you have learned about your students in the community, and given what you know about your strengths and areas for growth, what do you feel is an area to focus on for the next 6 to 8 weeks? For more information about action research, feel free to check out either of these websites, which provide a great deal of information around the topic. The Center for Collaborative Action Research is out of Pepperdine University, and the Education Alliance is out of Brown University. Thank you.
Great. So this overview produced by Shive on action research is intended to give just a thumbnail sketch of action research and the parts that go into supporting action research in your work to improve your teaching practice. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a look at Haiku, if I can find it. Let me get it. Here it is. Most of you, but not all of you, of course, are Year 1 participating teachers, and hopefully you've already had the opportunity to log into Haiku. So this is the main Haiku page, Year 1 Induction 2013-14. And as you well know, and as your support provider knows and can certainly help you move through Haiku, we have a welcome page on the left-hand side. And then here are the modules that were already referred to in Shive's overview. So here's where we can find more information, additional resources, and the actual documents to use for all of those pieces of action research. I'm going to click on Program Overview. This is the page that comes up. Underneath Program Overview, you will see a section called Standards. If you click on Standards, this is where you will find your own documents, in addition to ones that you will have with your support provider, for the CSTPs, or the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, and the program standards, which are the induction program standards. There are many standards here, and once again, I want to encourage you not to be overwhelmed by them, but rather look at them one by one in conjunction with your support provider, and over the course of the 2 years, you will become very well versed in these standards. This is where you find them within haiku. And we're now going to take a look at our next section. So in action research, we have modules. So we've taken this larger piece of action research, which essentially is identifying an area where you feel you would like to take your practice. With the support of your support provider, you then begin to gather data that allows you to address this action research or inquiry. Module A is that first piece, and you may have already started that with your support provider. If you haven't, please don't panic, but some of you may well have. That is the collection of information about your students, your school, the context of your teaching. So the first question here, how do you see action research as a part of your practice? If you're with someone, whether it's a colleague or your support provider, let's take just a few seconds for you to think about that question. Maybe speak with your support provider. Think about, how does action research help your practice? Okay, so let's take the second question. Given what you know so far about your class, essentially meaning your students, your school, your district, and community, and knowing what you do know about the California standards for the teaching profession and induction standards, what are some immediate areas of focus or need for you? This was also referred to in one of the in the orientation, for example, and please, you don't have to go by this. Oftentimes in year one, a teacher expresses a desire to focus on classroom management. And so that will be an area where they say, I'd really like to look at my procedures. I'd really like to look at a variety of strategies that allow my classroom to run smoothly. So based on your practice, is one or two areas that may come up for you where you say, if I was going to spend some time really digging into my practice, what might I want to look at? So I'm going to give you 1 minute to consider that or think about that with your support provider. Okay, I know that's not enough time for you to have had much of a discussion, but to at least begin to open the door, I'm going to ask you now in the question box if you would mind, and trust me, I'm not going to say your name at all, if you would mind maybe just typing in the area of focus. It doesn't have to be a long description. Maybe it's procedures or classroom management or grouping structures for students, so that we can just get an idea of where the group's thoughts are. Oh, inclusion. Wonderful. Motivation. That is one that comes up very frequently. Small group time. Technology use in the classroom. Well, and that does bring up quite a few areas, doesn't it? What technology is available and how can I effectively use it with a variety of students? How to help English learners with meaningful instruction in an English-only class. Boy, all of these are just right in line with the California standards and the induction standards. Your support providers must be smiling. Classroom management, we seem to think that that's only true for new teachers, but that is certainly not the case. Our students change, we change, the courses we teach change, our strategies change, and hopefully they do. Engaging students' motivation. Reading strategies for the struggling reader. Oh, this is great. You guys have some really nice areas going. Functionality of activities. Great. Thank you so much for sharing those. Balance of teaching towards Common Core versus CSTs and Casey. Absolutely. And I think everyone's going to be looking at different portions of this. And so you can imagine right now you have sort of these big ideas about here's an area where I think, I'm really interested in looking and I think would really help me move my practice forward. If we're lucky, we do this throughout our teaching career. Um, One of the things we want to do is show you how do you build towards addressing that area of need or focus. And the first step is what's called Module A. Some folks just asked me a question also. Apparently when they go into Haiku, and thank you for sharing this, you all can see Module A, but you cannot see Modules B and C. That may very well be the case on participating teacher screens, and I'm glad you brought that up. Because I am listed as an assistant teacher to this class, I can see all of the activities. Please don't be alarmed, but excellent question. If you cannot see, when you go to Haiku, modules A, B, and C, and we will go back to that page. It is highly likely that Shive has published what you need to see at the moment in an effort not to overwhelm you. So thank you, Shive. We're going to take a look at Module A, the actual documents, the pieces of data that go into it. And we're going to do that in the same way. I'm hoping you'll be able to see this fairly well.
Welcome to the Context for Teaching and Learning overview. The purpose of this FACT module, Context for Teaching and Learning, is to give you a chance to review information and data about your community, your school, your district, and most importantly, your students. The idea is if you understand your student population and understand the community within which you're teaching, be it the bigger overall community, your district, or your school, you're going to be able to better plan for the needs of your students. So we start off here in FACT Module A, Context for Teaching and Learning, with the first 2 pages just being the list of expectations. So there are various forms within this document that start from A1 and go to A6. What you're going to notice is that the expectations are just bullet pointed concepts of what we're looking for when we come in and we review your work. So please use this as a checklist to help you complete this module. So we're going to skip down to the actual module and we're going to take a look at Form A1, which is the class profile. If you're a special education teacher, you're going to skip to A1.1, which is about 2 or 3 pages down. And either case, what you're doing here is collecting information about your students. So if you're a K through 3 teacher, you will include the date of birth for your students. As far as student names go, please just use first names or initials. Do not include first and last names. Please check off whether or not your students are English learners and identify your students with special needs and also include what the special needs are or what the identifiers are. So for instance, are they on a 504? Are they gait? Do they have a medical condition? And so on. Lastly, You want to identify their academic strengths, social strengths, and make any notes about their parents and any other information that may help you understand your classroom population. Please do not leave this section blank. We really want to see that you're demonstrating your understanding and knowledge of your student backgrounds. The way that you can demonstrate that is by actually completing this portion as well, the comments portion. Please also note that if your district or school provides this information in another format, you can go ahead and insert it here as your A1. But again, we want to know what the contextual information within your classroom is. So can you demonstrate that you know your students? As we scroll down into the next page,
we're going to pause here for a second. First of all, I hope this is large enough for you to see. However, I want to assure you this video cast is available on Haiku. So please don't feel like, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all this? Remember, your support provider is there for you, and they're very well versed in this. This is introducing you to it so that you can begin to see that bigger picture as you begin to delve into the details. So you have this video cast, you have these documents, and in a few moments we'll go to where you can find those.
This is the second part of the classroom profile, and this is where you're going to list your students with medical conditions, IEPs, 504s, or students who have had previous SST interventions, and you will complete this portion as well. Lastly, in the class profile, the third part is identifying your GATE students and your students who are English learners. At this stage in the school year, you probably do not have CELT scores or CELT levels for your students for this year. So at this point, you may need to go ahead and use the scores from last year. But please identify your students who are English learners, their CELT scores, whether or not they've been redesignated, and so on. If you're a special ed teacher, you're going to skip those first 3 pages and just come right down to the Clear Ed Specialist Student Services profile, and you will complete this instead. Again, if you have this information in a different format, you can go ahead and insert it here. What's really nice about this page is that it is a one-pager, so you can list your students here and have all the information you need on 1 or 2 pages. And this is the information you would collect for your special ed students. So this is A1.1. Please note, anything that has a little key on it means if you're a special ed teacher, this is what you are going to fill out, either instead of or in addition to, depending on whether or not the form says special ed teachers skip to or special ed teachers do this also.
Okay, so those first few documents are where we really gather the data on our students. You have learned a lot about your students. And again, if you have a data management system in your district, you can pull that forward, and knowing how to do that will benefit you in years to come. Your support provider can help you as to how to include that. You may want to highlight students who, for example, are part of a special ed program, students who have certain CELT level scores, but your support provider can work with you. So as you design your action research and your inquiry, we want to make sure that we're looking to meet the needs of the actual students in our classroom. And so we make sure that we have those details handy. Next, we're going to go to part of the environment, which is your classroom. We're not going to go there.
Welcome to the Context for Teaching. I'm going to list your students with medical, use the scores. The environment is your classroom environment. You could take a picture of your classroom and insert it right in here, or you can create a chart. Please remember to include the rationale for the layout of your classroom. So if you have your classroom in rows with a desk in the front of the classroom, we want to see your rationale here. If you have students sitting in pods with the desk off to the corner, again, you want to explain your rationale. Why is the layout of your classroom the way it is? School and district information resources. This is more of a checklist. We just want to know that you know where to find all this information. So you're going to check some pieces off here to identify what applies to your school. You're going to attach a calendar of your school events, and when we say attach, that means you could just insert it into the pages that come after this page. Your school-wide discipline plan, please do not insert the entire booklet. You can either go ahead and put a link right here, or you could just insert the first page of the booklet. Really, our purpose here is for you to know where to find this information, and so we want to know that you've been able to find the information. You're going to fill out information about the school accountability report card and what all applies here around your school. So as we come down to the next page, there's the school and district information / resources. This is where you just identify the contact people for these various elements, including instructional resources, student data information, and student support services. And then the contact person, phone number, location, etc. If your school provides this to you, and most schools do provide you with the contact sheet, again, all you need to do is insert it into this page rather than filling out this information. Our goal is not for you to fill out forms. Our goal is for you to show us that you know where to access this information. This is about understanding your school and your district. The homeschool communication form, this is not a contact sheet, even though that's what it looks like. This is more of a log. So how are you keeping track of phone calls and emails to parents? If you have a system for tracking the communication with parents and families, then what you can do is insert a sample here of your format of communicating with parents. Sometimes people just take a screenshot of the folders that they have in their inbox, which is fine. However, I would hope that there's more communication than just email with families, especially as issues arise with your students. So we, again, want to see how you're tracking communication with families. And if you're not tracking communication, now would be a good time to think about how you're going to go about doing that. The orientation checklist, this is something that your principal needs to sign, or even your support provider can sign it, and you have a conversation about all these different elements. What we want to see is that someone has gone over this information with you. You do want to know things like how to request a sub, what intervention programs are available on your campus, what's the teacher evaluation process, and so on. The community map here is really just a place for you to explain what community information is available to you and what community resources are available to you in your district. So you don't necessarily have to insert a map, and that's all. More importantly, what we want to see is, do you know what resources are available to you within your community? And then we have the conversation guides. In the past, we have asked people to jot down summaries of the conversations that they had. But for this year, we're just asking that you have a conversation with your support provider around the class, school, district, and community, around pedagogy, universal access, teaching English learners, and teaching special populations, all based on the information that you have collected so far through this module. So again, this here is just a guide to help you or to help facilitate discussions with your support provider around the information that you have researched about your school.
Okay, that says it better than I possibly could. So what you have seen in that video are the actual documents that you will be asked to use. And as Shive says, and we always try to stress, it's not about the documents, but the documents back up the work that we do, just like homework and assessments for the students in our classroom. So what we want to do now is we want to take a look at some due dates, and then we're going to go back to Haiku and take a look at where these items are so that you can have that visual as well. So year one participating teachers and year two participating teachers, your memorandum of understanding is something that explains very carefully the roles and responsibilities you have within the induction program. That was due September 20th. We are still reviewing those. We've reviewed everything that has come in so far, but please, if you haven't done so yet, take a look at that, download it off Haiku, read it carefully, discuss it with your support provider, sign it, and upload it as a PDF. State consent form on the left-hand side, that's something that Shive will be working with your support provider on. Observation request and write-up. We have a video screencast for that. That document is also available. That's due later in October, so no reason to stress right now. 1.3 and 2.2 on the left and right sides. Fact Module A, Context for Teaching, which should be submitted in its final form after review by your support provider on October 25th. We're going to go take a look at those now. And so here we are back to Haiku. And you are absolutely right. On your Haiku first page, you will be able to see Module A. Right here, you see these little things that look like trees. They are not orange, which means I can look at them. They can still be edited, but they have not been published yet. So what Shive is doing is she's showing you those pieces that you need to work on right now. So we had already clicked on the standards area. These are the standards that you will be working with. Module A, it says September and October. If we click here, the first thing you see is the items and the dates that they're due, and that's the list that was just on that PowerPoint screen, the MOU, the state consent form, observation request and write-up, fact module A. On the left-hand side, you see it again, memorandum of understanding, state consent form, observation request write-up with attached observation notes. And here we are at Fact Module A, Context for Teaching and Learning. If you click there, you will see it says, please review the screencast and the expectations listed on the first pages of the attached document. Here's where you download those actual documents. And remember, this is recording the work that we all hope that every teacher is already doing, which is looking at the details of their students, determining information about their school and district. Now, of course, we typically don't have to do that every year, except for the information about our students. I want to draw your attention to something on the left-hand side. It says Module A Screencasts. If you click there, you're going to find screencasts to help you. So here we have the state consent form. It's a screencast that will walk you through what you need to do in order to complete that. 1-2, observation request and write-up. Shive has also included how to insert a page in a Word document. So if you're having a challenge with that, this is a resource for you. And over here on the far right, 1-3, Fact Module A, Context for Teaching and Learning. That is the exact same video that you just watched. You will notice, and I did mention this in the orientation that we did virtually, you will notice that there are a lot of hints as to alternate ways that you can complete these tasks. Your support providers are well versed in this. But again, just because I repeat things all the time, I'm often sitting at my computer at home. I've been working very hard. I want to take a look at the next part of the module, and I don't remember the conversation or what I heard in a video cast. All of this is here to help support you. So let's take a look at, I'm going to ask you now, through your questions, you've been sitting here for quite some time. I'm going to ask you to type in any questions that you may have currently. I would say action on action research overall is fine. Chances are that's really remember the big picture. And what we're doing is taking steps to be able to initiate that action research. So if you have any questions about where to locate information, things that came up during watching the video cast where you're like, oh, I want to ask that question right now, you certainly can ask your support provider. But if you have any questions, please go ahead and type those in the question block, and we'll see if we can get those answered for you right away. Okay, while you're doing that, I have 3 polls I'm going to ask you about, 3 questions. And I'm going to open up the first one. I'll remember to close it this time so you can actually see the screen again. Live and learn. Oh, you all are awesome. So I don't know if you can see poll results. It's the first time I've used poll, so please forgive me. But it looks like all of you are anywhere from comfortable to extremely comfortable. Fairly even, but most of you seem extremely comfortable, and I'm so glad about that. So, knowing that Haiku is there for you, your support provider, who's fabulous and an expert in fact, is there for you. If you're comfortable, you and I both know it's probably a matter of going in and looking. But certainly, if you need help, support provider is the first person to go to. If they're not available for any reason, please feel free to go to your hub leader or your coordinator and see if you can get the answers that you need, because that's critically important. Thank you. I'm going to close that poll. The next one is, do you feel you have the big picture regarding action research? So that big piece of developing a focus and moving towards investigating an area of focus. Oh, cool. So it looks like half and half pretty much. Yes, very clear, clear. We have some not clear. I have to tell you, I remember the first time I went through this, and it took me a while because I'm a visual learner and other reasons. I really needed to step back and really just let it process. Also, we're all different kinds of learners. Some people need to dig into the detail and then step back and look at the big picture. What I want to say to you is have no fear. By the time you're ready to move forward in your action research piece of looking at your question, I think it will be very, very clear for you. If it is not, please make sure you communicate, communicate, communicate. And last one, I promise, last one. Will you be able to locate the screencasts and documents that will support your work within Module A? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but sometimes, you find out you're wrong. Oh, great. It looks like people are either yes, very clear, or yes, I think so. We have a few who are at probably. And I think you know what I'm going to say. Just like me, sometimes looking around for yourself helps a lot versus seeing it on a more static screen. If you have any issues at all, you know what I'm going to say. Communicate, communicate. We're here to support you, all of us. That essentially wraps up. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So some people watching on an iPad cannot respond to the poll. Oh, that's okay. By telepathy, I'm going to try to figure out what it is, and that's okay. As if you're thinking about, can I locate those things? That's wonderful. Let's see. Another question. Several of our teachers do not have their haiku passwords yet. Um, so if they have gone through that webinar registration, that should be when they get their haiku passwords. So I guess my question would be, have they gone through that initial orientation to haiku? And if not, Shive will be reading through these questions, and whoever types the questions, we have your name, and we can get a response to you or try to check and see what's going on with the haiku passwords. A couple folks say I missed the orientation. We will try to make sure that we get that out to you, and I have your name attached so that I or someone else can hopefully follow up with you in terms of the orientation. Okay, it is 4:26. Our virtual meeting time actually goes till 4:45, but we understand how busy you are, and we try to make sure that we get information to you, but that we don't just keep going without a very good reason. Let me look through the questions very quickly. Ah, wasn't able to access the webinar orientation. That has happened from time to time. Oh, okay, perfect. I'm seeing who missed it. Okay, great. Thank you, Kathleen, for sharing that. So I know a couple of people who do not have their haiku passwords, and we will follow up on that. I love hearing from you and seeing how we can best support you. I think that's all of the questions. So I'm not trying to put you off, but rather to gather these together and see how we can respond to you as effectively as possible. I appreciate your participation today within your busy schedules. I hope this opens the door both for action research and for the purpose and the process of Module A. And support providers, I know that you will be there to help them in any way possible. So thank you so much for your participation, and I hope to see you sometime soon, either virtually or in person. So goodbye for today.